The Cliff and the Lullaby. I am not skilled in combat. I don't even know how to use a weapon. Yet, despite all this frailness, I sure know how to fight my battles without faltering easily. This might sound arrogant, I know, but the root of my courage was, as a matter of fact, the reason why I am able to confront all the life's challenges thrown at me. Once upon a rainy season in my childhood, when the rain stopped the next day and the land was left wet and risky, I and my mother hiked up the mountain to pick up some mushrooms. I was only 6 at that time, so my mother did not actually want me to come. She instead wanted me to stay and play with the other children from our little neighborhood. But I insisted while crying. My father passed away when I was still a baby, and since then, I was always by her side. Never had I wanted to be away from her. So out of desperation, my mother finally allowed me to tag along with her. She made me promise though that I should behave well and never wander far from her. I gave her an abrupt nodding, making sure she would believe me. But as a curious child I was, you could not expect that I was able to keep my promise. The sky was still cloudy during that time. When we started hiking the steep and slippery path on the mountain, my mother kept on reminding me to watch my steps and do not let go of the hem of her blouse. In my fear of getting lost, I did as she told me. She would occasionally turn over some stones or flip some dried leaves on the ground, hoping to find some fresh mushroom sprouts. We were able to collect some, but she said it would not be enough to allow us to survive a day. So we hiked further, and we reached the part where mushrooms miraculously grew abundantly. Out of excitement, my mother crouched down and started pulling every capped fungus her eyes could set upon. Aiming to make my mother smile more, I also decided to gather some mushrooms around as well. She worked hard to raise me by herself. I was naughty and stubborn sometimes, but she never became angry with me. She would just often smile and talk to me sincerely. So I thought I might be able to provide her even just a little bliss if we collected more mushrooms. Then I started collecting my first batch of edible fungi. She was quite happy when I brought them to her, so I decided to gather more. Her delight was my delight as well, but I did not expect that my desire to help my mother to make her happy would lead me to a horrible event. With my mother's smile in my mind, I did not notice that I had already gone far while picking up some mushrooms. Suddenly, there was a loud thundering. It made me jump and scream. My mushrooms were all scattered on the ground. Then at that moment, I remembered my mother. I looked around and realized that I had wandered far from her. My only wish to keep her smiling unexpectedly brought me some horror. The rain started with only heavy, occasional droplets. Then came the downpour, and I could not hold my tears anymore. Nay! Nanay! Nay! I listened carefully, but the response I got was only the angry bellowing of the wind. I noticed that the surrounding of my own started to get darker and darker. Fear grew in me as fast as the puddles appeared on the muddy ground. The rain had soaked me completely. I decided to look for a place where I could crouch and comfort myself. I ran aimlessly through the bushes until I found a huge balete tree. I inserted myself into the hollow formed by its branching roots. There I kept on crying. What will happen to me if Mother cannot find me? Can I go back home to my nanay? Can I see nanay again? Nanay, please find me, nanay. my thoughts kept on running, even feeding my fear more. Of a sudden, I found myself humming a tune while curled up between the roots. It was the lullaby that Nanay would often sing to comfort me. Then a flicker of determination suddenly began burning inside me. No matter what happened, I had to go back to Nanay to see her again and her smile. I mustered my strength and stood on my feet. I decided to sing the lullaby aloud to help me think clearly.
Jason, my son, don't cry.
I immediately wiped my tears, though my cheeks would not dry due to the rain.
Be brave, Jason. Look around you carefully.
I surveyed the place where I was. Then, I turned to face the balete tree. It was then I realized that the decade-old tree was a landmark to the path headed to where Nanay and my favorite place was. The truth was, there were parts of the mountain that I was familiar with, especially this path. During the sunny days, Nanay would always take me to a cliff overlooking our entire barrio. There, we would have a picnic while enjoying the picturesque view of the surrounding green fields.
Go somewhere we often visit.
With that memory in my mind, I took my first step. I was still singing Nanay's lullaby, of course. It kept me calm. It also enigmatically grew a map in my mind. The path became dark, but the simultaneous flashing of lightning lit my way. Every time I would see a familiar tree or bush, I would make a turn. Later on, the rain started to die down, the gloomy clouds also cleared the sky, and the full moon finally shone on my way. The problem though was since I was drenched in the rain, I would shiver in every blow of the wind. My singing of the lullaby became shaky, but I told myself that I must continue singing. Nanay's lullaby was the only way I could keep myself calm, despite the screeches I could hear around me.
Wait for me there, Jason, okay?
Since the path was muddy and slippery, I struggled and fought my way through. Not for long, I could see an opening at the end of the lines of trees. I was already hugging myself due to the extreme cold. My feet also seemed to refuse on walking anymore. I had to urge myself to go on. I had to, or I would not see my Nanay again. And I was sure that if I went to that cliff, Nanay would find me there. My voice began to sound hoarse already, but I did not stop singing. Finally, I reached the place where I wanted to go, the cliff. My legs could not hold it anymore, and I dropped on my knees. I stared at the vastness of the view before me. From there, I could see our barrio, with every hut faintly illuminated because of the lit oil lamps inside them, looking beautifully under the moonlight. But how was I to appreciate such wonder if Nanay was not with me?
I'll come for you.
My singing still continued, but it was more of a mumbling than a lullaby anymore. The cold seemed to have seeped into my skinny body. Only if Nanay was there. Her hug could keep me warm, and my eyelids started to feel heavy. I tried to fight the exhaustion, but my body was completely weary. My singing had also become a raspy whisper. Just when I was about to doze off, a warm embrace enveloped me. Then I heard Nanay's voice singing her lullaby so sweetly. What a cozy dream I was having.
Good job, Jason. You know where to go so I can find you.
Hearing that cracked voice, I opened my weary eyes and urged myself to turn around. I saw Nanay's face full of tears while smiling at me.
Jason, my son, thank you for being brave.
She hugged me tightly. When I hugged her back, I noticed that our barrio people standing behind her with torches in their hands. She must have called them to help search for me. Since then, I never felt that scared whenever I encounter hard circumstances in my life. All I need to do was to sing Nanay's lullaby, remember her words, and reimagine the view from the cliff.